Hi everyone, this is Rach. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are painting this beautiful sunset by the ocean scene. Many of you asked me to film a step-by-step tutorial, so that is what we are going to do today. So if you're interested, keep on watching. First off the paper, this is 300 GSM hot pressed watercolor paper, a jar of plain water and a spray bottle, paint brushes and a paint mixing palette. For the colors, I will be using titanium white, Prussian blue and cobalt blue, oriental red and deep red, lemon yellow and beige yellow, orange, olive green, blackish green and black. Even though I'm using this Himi Gouache palette, I will refrain from picking up any of the pre-mixed shades today, so that even if you have just a basic few colors, you will be able to create similar shades. So as you can see, I have taped down the edges of my paper with washi tape. You can also use masking tape or painter's tape. If you like rough edges, you can simply skip this step. I picked reference for this painting from Pinterest. It is linked below in the description, so you can download it from there if you're following along. Now I have divided the page according to where the horizon will fall, and to start with the sky, I'm first adding a thin layer of white paint to the surface. I usually do this when I'm working with gradients. White paint just helps me in creating a smooth surface for the gradient in general, and if you look at the reference, it is also acting like a transition shade, if that makes sense. Now for the top area of the sky, I have mixed some white, Prussian blue and cobalt blue to create this soft blue shade. It is a little bit less saturated than what is appearing on the camera. I'm adding this shade on the very top of the page as well as a little below the horizon line where we are going to paint water reflections. Make sure you are painting these colors strategically because we are going to add many sunset shades next. So this blue color should not overlap with other shades, otherwise the painting will turn out very muddy and dull. I'm blending the harsh lines with white color, and now just taking a damp brush, I'm trying to smoothen everything out. When I'm saying damp brush, I mean that you need to wash off any color from your brush and soak the excess water on a cloth or tissue paper so that you will be left with a moist enough brush and not too wet of an application. Now as you can see, I'm adding a bunch of colors to my palette, including oriental red, deep red and a bright shade of orange. These are just names from this Himi Gouache set. You can use any similar shade that you have. I've also added lemon yellow and I'm mixing around the colors trying to get a peachy orange kind of a shade. Also, the palette will be completely visible on the screen after a while. I had enough space on the easel itself, so I later on placed it on the right side. Now I'm using the colors I just mixed to create this sunset sky. First, I have placed this mixed orange color right above the horizon, and I'm going to add a bunch of bright colors going up in the direction, but still keeping enough space in between the blue and these sunset shades so that I can blend everything smoothly with the white paint in the middle. At this point, I just want to say that it is okay if your gradient is not that smooth. I'm not perfect as well by any means, but things do start to get better as you practice more and more. I do not struggle with gradients as much as I used to, so I do like how this turned out. But if yours is looking a little bit streaky, you can always add extra elements like clouds, for instance. It will only add charm to the painting. Now back to the painting, I have added the most bright color right above the horizon because that is where I'm going to paint the setting sun, and as I'm going up, I have added comparatively lighter and less saturated pink and yellow shades so that I can get a more pastel and soft-like finish in the middle. Again, I have blended everything together with the help of white paint and the damp brush technique. The sun is a little bit on the right side in the reference photo, but I want to paint it in the middle. That is why I'm adding more of that yellow shade here to enhance the warmth in the sky as well as in the reflection. Now I'm adding more colors similar to the sky in the ocean area as well, and again blending it all together with white. Just make sure that the most bright colors are the closest to the horizon and the most warmth will be around the sun. I'm going to add a more bright red later on when I actually paint the sun and visibly divide the horizon with a darker shade. For now, I'm just trying to smooth things out as much as I can. Now I'm taking a little bit of that Prussian blue, red, white and cobalt blue to create this dark purple kind of a shade. It's looking more on the dark blue side on screen, but it does have that purple hue. This shade is what I'm going to use to divide the horizon. It is alright if the shades you are mixing are not exactly the same as mine. Try to find some freedom in your approach with this painting. I am self-taught, so I do not have a fixed strategy for every painting that I do. So I'm just trying to explain whatever I'm doing in a way that I hope is easy for you to understand. It's a very layman language that I'm using because seriously I'm just narrating whatever I'm doing. So follow this tutorial with a more free spirit and creative approach. Also, if you're unsure about placing the shades right away on the painting itself, you can always use a rough test card and see if it's to your liking, especially if you are a beginner or new to gouache, because gouache paints tend to change the colors a bit after drying. The dark shades dry a bit lighter and the light shades tend to dry a bit darker, so it's always safe to first test it out on a separate page. It will get a lot easier once you become familiar with the medium. Now that I finished the background, I can start adding details. Like I said before, I'm adding more red around the sun, just mixing and playing around with colors that I already have on the palette. I'm using that purple hue again to add details from the reflection perspective, but also to give an idea of water movement and waves. I'm using this lighter yellow shade I mixed with white and lemon yellow to blend the rest of the colors. And then as I was trying to blend the remaining middle part of the ocean with white, I switched to a very light pink, and I think this made such a huge difference. Now I'm just adding a few more details to try and build some depth in the water. Meanwhile, I want to address a question that I get a lot, which is that what set would I recommend to someone who is just starting out with gouache? To answer this, I honestly don't think that you need to worry a lot about the quality of paints right when you are just starting out. So the brand doesn't matter in my opinion. The only thing that I would say is that try to get a set with limited colors. I started out with a 12 shade set, and that is what I recommend too. Set with a lot of pre-mixed colors are meant to save time. They are not going to help you in learning color theory or paint mixing, creating your own signature shades or style in any way, shape or form. So these bigger sets are only going to overwhelm you. So as a beginner, try not to go over 12 colors. Next, I'm adding some soft wispy clouds with this beautiful shade of pink, and I've also added some sparkles in the water. With the same yellow, I'm painting to give an idea of a cloud right above where the sun would be. Now that I've painted the sun, I can go ahead and add more of that red shade around it to brighten things up even more. I'm smudging some of that white paint I used for the sun to create sort of a streak of light. The details in the top half of the page are pretty much done now, so I can go ahead and add some movement in the remaining part of the ocean. And to do so, I'm mixing up a slightly darker shade of blue and painting very thin layered long strokes. I'm not putting too much pressure onto these strokes as I do not want this to be very opaque. Everything will need to be blended out eventually. I'm also taking some of that pink shade to add these tiny strokes around the more pink peachy area in the water, and of course blending everything out first with a damp brush, and later on I took some of that blue I used earlier for the sky and bottom part of the water to further blend it out even more. Now I'm adding some more sparkles and highlights. After this I can move on to the remaining bottom portion of the painting, in which I'm going to paint some grass and silhouettes. To create a base layer, I'm mixing some olive green, blackish green and black to create this really dark shade of green. I'm using a filbert brush to block the whole area with this shade first, and then I switch to a ragged old brush to add some texture to the top layer of the grass so that it doesn't look all streaky. For the first layer of grass, I'm adding a little bit more black into this already mixed shade of green on my palette to create a slightly darker shade. Almost black but still with a hint of green. I'm using this long detailed brush to paint the grass. I've never used this before, and as the grass is long in the scene, I just thought of trying it out. It is pretty easy to use, but you can just use any thin liner brush if you do not have it. I'm painting these long grass which are sort of acting like silhouettes, so these are going to be the darkest in color. For the second layer, I have mixed some olive green and a little bit of that dark green shade on my palette to create this slightly lighter shade than the base layer. Make sure the first layer is dry before you proceed with the next one so that the colors do not dry out to be all muddy. For the second layer of grass, I mixed some yellow to get this lighter shade of green, and I'm going to paint this selectively and mostly on the top of the already painted grass strokes to create some depth. And finally I added some white paint in this to create a lighter green shade for highlights. It's finally all complete. This took me around 2 hours in case you're wondering. Also tag me on Instagram if you recreate this painting, and if you like this video, make sure to subscribe. It will help me in creating more such videos in the future. Leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.